Losing a loved one is, well, it's an incredibly heavy experience. And in the midst of navigating all that grief, literally the last thing anyone wants to think about is federal bureaucracy. But there is a critical, highly time-sensitive need to handle Social Security affairs right away. So in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how to report a death to Social Security step by step. We'll take what feels like an overwhelming maze and turn it into a clear roadmap so you can protect your family's finances and focus on what truly matters. Here's something that catches so many grieving families totally off guard. Did you know Social Security payments don't stop automatically? It's a huge misconception that the government just instantly knows when someone passes away. They don't. While their systems are connected, the ultimate urgent legal responsibility to report the death, that falls squarely on the surviving family, the estate executor, or a representative payee. If you don't act, the payments keep coming, and that is going to lead to some very serious complications.
Actually, before we even get into the how-to, we need to start with a massive warning about what absolutely not to do. Never, under any circumstances, spend a direct deposit or cash a paper check that's received after the beneficiary's date of death. Doing so is illegal, and it creates a massive financial and legal headache for you and the estate. Even if that money is just sitting there in the account, you literally cannot touch it.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, why prompt reporting matters. Then, step 1, getting prepared. Step 2, making contact. After that, we'll cover resolving post-death payments, applying for survivor benefits, and finally, some pro tips and troubleshooting.
Section 1. Why prompt reporting matters, protecting your family from financial liabilities.
Getting this done quickly isn't just about crossing a chore off your to-do list. It's really the main way you safeguard your loved one's identity from fraud and protect the estate from federal liabilities. To understand the urgency here, you got to understand this specific term, post-mortem overpayment. Under federal law, any Social Security money issued for the month of death or any time after is considered an overpayment. It's literally federal property, and it absolutely must be legally reclaimed by the government. The longer you wait to report, the bigger this overpayment grows, and trust me, the messier it is to unravel with the Treasury Department later on.
Section 2. Step 1. Getting prepared and gathering the essential documents. You know, when you're stressed, dealing with a government agency can feel totally overwhelming. But gathering the right information before you even make contact, that significantly reduces your stress later. So here's your essential checklist. You're going to need the deceased's Social Security number, their official death certificate, date and place of birth, and the exact date and place of death. You'll also need the Social Security numbers of surviving family members, a history of marriages and divorces, and recent W-2s or tax returns. Now, if you hit a wall and just cannot find the deceased Social Security number, don't panic. You can actually use a specific document, Form SSA 711, to request an official search of agency records.
Moving on to Section 3, Step 2, making contact, and how to officially notify the SSA. So now that you're prepped, it's time to formally notify the Social Security Administration. And it's critical to know that this has to be done through specific, legally recognized channels. You can't just report a death via email or some online portal. So how do you do it? Well, step 1 actually happens in the background a lot of the time. If you give the Social Security number to the funeral director, they usually initiate the report via the Electronic Death Registration, or EDR system. But listen closely here. It is ultimately your duty to ensure the SSA actually received it. If you aren't using a funeral director or you just want to be absolutely certain, you've got to move to step 2 or 3. That means calling the SSA directly or scheduling an in-person visit to a local field office. If you need to make that call, here is the national toll-free number you need to dial. 1-800-772-1213. Go ahead and write that down. And if you're deaf or hard of hearing, the TTY number is 1-800-325-0778. This is your direct lifeline to confirm the report has actually been officially logged. Okay, Section 4. Resolving post-death payments and halting active payments safely. Now, what's really interesting and famously tricky about this is figuring out exactly who gets to keep that final month of benefits. Social Security retirement benefits are paid 1 month in arrears. All that really means is a beneficiary has to live through the entire calendar month to keep that month's payment. Let's look at this timeline. If a beneficiary lives through all of April, they earn that benefit, which pays out in May. You keep that. But let's say they passed away on May 25th. They didn't live through the entire month of May, right? Therefore, the check that arrives in June, which is actually the May payment, must be returned. Keep in mind, though, Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, is a bit different. It actually is payable for the month of death, but it has to stop immediately after. How you actually return these funds depends entirely on how they were received in the first place. If the benefits were sent via direct deposit, you've got to notify the receiving bank of the death immediately. The bank will then initiate an ACH return, sending the funds right back to the U.S. Treasury. Now, if the benefits came as physical paper checks, you must leave them uncashed. You can either mail them back to the regional financial center listed on the envelope, or you can physically hand them over at a local SSA field office and just get a receipt.
I really want to issue a stern warning here for anyone who shares a joint bank account with a deceased. According to Form SSA 1199-OP15, joint account holders face direct personal liability for any post-mortem funds that are withdrawn or spent. Think about it. If a direct deposit hits the account after the deed of death and you accidentally spend it on groceries or estate expenses, you will personally owe that debt to the federal government. Bottom line, do not touch those funds. Section 5. Applying for survivor benefits and claiming the benefits your family is entitled to.
Let's shift gears for a second and talk about the financial support your family might rightfully be owed. Social Security is designed to help surviving spouses, minor children, and sometimes even dependent parents. Navigating this bureaucracy is so much easier when we group the forms by their purpose. So, if you're an eligible surviving spouse or child, Form SSA 8 is your application for the one-time lump sum death benefit. Form SSA 10 is the application for ongoing monthly widows, widowers, or surviving divorced spouses benefits. And Form SSA 5 is for mothers or fathers benefits, specifically if you're caring for the deceased minor or disabled child.
Let's quickly talk about that lump sum. The one-time lump sum death benefit is exactly $255. It's a very specific, statutory amount available to an eligible surviving spouse who is living with a deceased or, in some specific cases, a qualifying child. So, the absolutely crucial point here is this. Survivor benefits are generally not retroactive. They are paid from the date of the application, not the date of death. If you put off applying for 6 months because, totally understandably, you're overwhelmed, you could permanently lose out on 6 months of potential benefits. You really must apply promptly.
Moving on to our final part, Section 6, Pro Tips and Troubleshooting, to help you navigate the bureaucracy smoothly. Let's act as your insider guide with a few rapid-fire expert secrets to help ease this burden. First up, if you're calling the SSA, wait times are usually shortest between 8 and 10 a.m., Wednesday through Friday, and later in the month. Second, you actually don't need to call Medicare separately. The SSA automatically cancels Medicare enrollment when a death is reported. Third, and this is a big one for representative pays, if you have conserved funds, meaning money you saved up on behalf of the beneficiary, do not return that to the SSA. That money belongs to the deceased's estate, and it has to go to the legal representative or probate court. Finally, if you want to apply for survivor benefits but you're missing a birth certificate or a W-2, apply anyway. Seriously, don't delay. The SSA will actually help you track those missing documents down. Now, what if the unthinkable happens abroad? If a beneficiary passes away internationally, you don't call the standard 800 number. You must report the death to the nearest U.S. embassy, consulate, or the designated federal benefits unit, known as the FBU, for that specific country. We've spent this whole explainer focused on managing a crisis after it happens. But if you thought about your own setup, organizing your own end-of-life logistics, documents, and accounts today is literally one of the greatest gifts you can give your family. It spares them the stressful, bureaucratic scavenger hunt while they're just trying to grieve. Please remember, while we've covered the official federal guidelines comprehensively in this explainer today, individual circumstances, family structures, and estate laws vary wildly. Always consult directly with the Social Security Administration or a qualified legal professional for advice that's tailored to your exact situation. This explainer was produced on July 22, 2026. Thank you so much for joining me. Before you go, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If something happened to you tomorrow, would your family know exactly where to find all your essential documents, or would they be left completely in the dark?